Coming to you from sunny California and the Great White North. Get ready. We are breaking down the obstacles on the Armchair Ninja Podcast. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Armchair Ninja Podcast. It is Tuesday, June 28th, 2016. My name is Rich, and with me once again this week is Bijan. How are you making out this morning?
What up, man? A little tired, but I'm in it, man. I'm sticking through.
We usually record pretty late at night, but we've got Bijan up early this morning. So we're going to be covering the episode 3 of Spartan Race, and we actually have a special guest with us this time. We have Matt B. Davis of Obstacle Racing Media with us. How are you making out, Matt?
I am doing well. Thank you for doing an early call for me. I really appreciate it. I do not function well after 7 or 8 p.m.
Oh, no worries. Every time actually we have somebody on the show, it's usually early in the day. So Matt's an expert on Spartan Race. He literally wrote the book on it. His book is called Down and Dirty, The Essential Training Guide for Obstacle Races and Mud Runs. He's also the host of his own weekly podcast called Obstacle Racing Media Podcast, which has been going on for some time, hasn't it, Matt?
I started it back in exactly 4 years ago, like June of 2012. So yeah, we've been going strong for a while.
Nice. So Matt, we've given our kind of initial impressions of the show because we're actually going to talk about the show. This isn't a pure interview. We're going to talk about the episode. So just wondering, how have you liked it so far?
The overall Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge?
Yeah, just the whole show. Not this particular episode, but like in general, how are you feeling about it?
Well, I mean, unfortunately, it's a lot easier to talk about the stuff I don't like about it.
Oh boy,
that's fine. We've been doing the same. We haven't been giving it a pass. So there are some things we would like to see improve. So I guess what were the big things for you?
Well, I think first of all, I'd love to know how most of America thinks. I mean, the ratings are one thing, and we can see those. But I was trying to search Twitter as sort of the easiest way to kind of find out what regular America thinks, because my community is going to, the OCR community is always going to be the most critical, right? It's our little baby. We want everything to be perfect. And most of the feedback has been pretty harsh. So the first complaint people say is it's not enough like a real Spartan race, which it's not supposed to be. So I don't think that's a problem. Meaning when you do a Spartan race, you're not going to see that 50-foot slip wall. You're not going to see that cool log thing that everybody jumps on. Like, you're not going to see obstacles like that. But I'm okay with that. That's because that's a difference between the Spartan Race show and the Spartan Ultimate Team Challenge show. The problem that most of the folks in our community have, and that I would have, is that they do what a lot of people do with television. That is, if something works a little bit, let's cram it down everybody's throat 1,000 times. So in this case, it would be the backstories, right? Works really well on Ninja, right? They're only on the course for a pretty short amount of time, so it just sort of makes sense that we spend half the time learning about the people, since they're only going to be on the course for 1 to 3 minutes. Here we've got a mile-long course. The finisher times are between 20 and 25 minutes. We could certainly be watching a lot more race action, and then a little bit of backstory either before and after that process. Is that kind of what you guys have found so far?
Oh yeah. That's been my big complaint, and I try to do a lot of justice to the show, see their perspective of it, but the show definitely has had kind of the flaw that early American Ninja Warrior has, where they just go way too far in the melodramatic storylines. And the episode we're going to talk about today actually was a perfect example of it, where we were focused on one particular person's story for literally half the episode. Like, legit, they switched over to another team 33 minutes into the episode. So I think that's the big problem. But I'm trying to look at it from the outside perspective of, it's still the first season. Maybe they're just getting their feet wet. It took American Ninja Warrior 3 seasons to finally find their footing. So maybe it's just growing pains at the beginning. I'm trying to be optimistic about it.
Again, I'm going to be extra sensitive about this stuff because it is my world. But let's take, the announcing as well. I would say 99% of what they're saying is scripted. I'm going to be critical from an OCR perspective that you choose a football player and a soccer player for your hosts, right? For what reason, I don't know. But again, it's like, a guy like Evan is like close enough, I guess, because they're like, well, he's on Ninja, so that's sort of close. But there's so many people in the obstacle world, including people like competing on that show who could be any one of those roles. Like you could take an Amelia or a Hunter or a Megiddo and put them in those roles, and it would make it, first of all, more legitimate, and second of all, they could speak to it a little bit more genuinely, and rather than just the, wow, looks like he's got a big race on their hands, Chuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I love that all your criticisms are exactly the same criticisms that have been leveled at Ninja for years, right? It's the exact same things that they don't know. They don't do the sport themselves, that the commentary is too over the top and things.
But see, that's become their thing, though. Like, don't you think like people play drinking games about Akbarisms, you know what I mean? Like, that's become part of the show.
Right. So there is that potential there to kind of turn it around and make it its own thing, I think, over time. But yeah, I think all of your criticisms are pretty fair. So it's still kind of growing. But here's the thing. So I'll make a counterpoint to it because I'm just that way. So the problem is twofold. We do find that the storylines are a little heavy-handed and they're a little long. But at the same time, we also aren't very invested in the show because we don't know who these people are. So we almost need that to care more.
Yeah, well, I actually to accentuate that, I want to hear from both of you guys. Can you guys name at least 4 of the teams that were on this last episode? Give it a try.
Okay, so Muddy Minglers won it, right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
It's funny, all the ones that are coming to me are last week. I remember Farmstrong from last week.
Yeah.
I remember Bounce.
Yeah, because they were memorable.
I remember Bounce Squad from last week. Was there a Miami Spice this week?
Yeah, that was one of them.
All right, so that's 2. They always only show the second race. So who was in the first race? It's funny because I know the people on those teams because I pay close attention. So the Unbreakable Joneses are this father-son team. They were the runner-ups that were waiting. What the heck do they call them?
No idea.
Yes. See, I'm not going to cheat. I'm not going to look at my list here. I've got them all written down.
So Rich is out.
Yeah, but I'm not looking, so I haven't looked at it yet today. I think Team Warrior was one of them, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they somehow try to connect it to OEW, which is Operation Enduring Warrior, which are the guys that run around the the course. But they weren't. They were kind of loosely, not really.
Oh, that's nice to know.
But anyhow, but can we actually talk about like how great Hunter is and how I believe that Hunter is the reason that team won?
Isn't he the best?
I mean, yeah, absolutely. I get drawn into him very, very easily.
I mean, he's a character, and he definitely knows how to play that character well, but he really is this great dude and really is smart and knows how to play it up for the camera. I think it was a great example of how a really strong captain can win the day, because clearly those guys have some physical, attributes, but he really knew how to carry them, right? Conversely, the Miami Spice was actually a perfect example of all show, no go, right? And we see those people on the obstacle course all the time, where buffed out, CrossFit guys, they get to that first hill with any elevation, and they're like, "Sorry, man, I'm cramping," and they're like bending over, and I'm 44 years old and I'm whizzing by them.
That's funny because that's exactly what I deal with when I run Spartans. Like I see the most yoked guys just like dying on the first hill, right? Like because they think it's just like all like muscle obstacles, and they don't realize like no, it's mostly mountains that you're like running up and stuff. Yeah. Rich, it's definitely something to see.
Yeah, I bet it would be funny to see them kind of brought down a notch, I guess. So let's actually get into the episode. So the first heat we had was One Step Ahead, Miami Spice, and Muddy Minglers. So One Step Ahead is actually the story I think you were referring to pretty obviously earlier. So that was Amy Winters. Now, they said she runs marathon death races, which sounds absolutely terrifying. Do Do you guys know what that is?
Yeah, so Amy is amazing. There's something if you do some Googling after this call, you look up the death race. It's sort of how Spartan really started. Was this ultra marathon called the death race, where they just kind of sent people doing everything from hiking over 20-mile mountains carrying heavy things to digging. Finding pennies at the bottom of a pond to like eating onions, like this crazy, crazy stuff. And that sort of birthed the short version, which became the Spartan race. But so Amy just actually did something called the Agoge, which is the new version of the death race. And she's one of those people who doesn't quit. She's just one of those amazing people. But is her story the one that you think took 33 minutes?
It did, for sure, yeah.
Definitely. my big problem with her, my big problem is that they find one story, right, for every episode, and they just milk it for all it's worth. And that was my big problem with this episode, where they just kept harping on her story. And I love her story, don't get me wrong. I always have to preface that because I feel like people may think that I hate these stories or I hate the person or whatever. No, I think what she's doing amazing, but it gets to a point where I'm like, okay, I just want to enjoy the show, right? They're harping on it way too much, and it almost becomes kind of, I don't know, almost annoying when they keep showing her leg and being like, oh, this is so inspirational, this is so inspirational, this is so amazing, and I'm like, it is, okay, like, don't ram it down my throat the entire episode. And legit, they ran just that first leg up until the 33-minute mark of this episode. Too much.
Yeah, and what's interesting is that that the first 3 episodes, that's what they've done. They've called it their feature race, which has been the second race, right, before showing the final. So to me, I always say, if I can imagine the boardroom where they had the conversation, then it's not very good, right? So if they're sitting there going, okay, so week 1 looks like Isaiah's going to be our story. Let's spend 25 minutes on him. It's the same thing here. Like, okay, well, here we've got the one without a leg. We can totally make the whole story about her. It's just lazy.
Yeah, I feel like this show is kind of produced and everything more by executives rather than people that actually have a passion for the sport, if that makes sense. A lot of the decisions being made are probably from somebody that's more into the reality show spectrum rather than the Spartan race spectrum. And I think that's where a lot of the issues stand from, where they're just harping too much on traditional tropes of the reality show basis, which aren't going to work for this type of show. And we can get in the ratings later, but it's looking not good.
Yeah, so they had the big ninja lead in week 1. Week 2, let's see how it does, right? Like, still with the ninja lead in, but now it dropped a little bit, and then Thursday there was a massive drop.
Literally half the ratings. Literally.
It's up against some stiff competition, and I actually forgetting now, but I'm pretty sure it was like Big Brother, and like it's up against some monsters on Thursday night. I think Big Bang Theory, like it's in a really tough time slot.
Yeah, see, and that doesn't, and I don't even understand. Again, there's so many invisible hands that we don't know about why the heck they'd be doing it this way. But it does, like it's produced by Arthur Smith, right? They've got the crossover talent, right? We know this next episode is about to have Lance and Kevin on it, right? Mm-hmm. It seems like they would stay together, right? Like they would stay together even if they both moved to a different night. They would stay together, not just the old show to help the new show, but because they are crossover shows.
Yeah, the sports are very similar to each other, Like, I come from a obstacle course racing background, just like you, Matt. I've done, multiple Spartan races and Tough Mudders and everything. And now I'm super interested in trying a Ninja Warrior course eventually. And I feel like there are a lot of people that train for Ninja Warrior that are starting out trying mud runs and everything. So even though they're different, there are some parallels to the sports. And I think the home audience definitely can see that. Just from the visual aspect of it alone, right? But by itself on Thursdays, where there's nothing attached to it whatsoever, it's not... I don't know if NBC's just sending it out to die or what, but it's just a really poorly timed thing for that. But yeah, I guess we're gonna have to keep an eye out on that. My only hope is that people give it enough support to survive till season 2, and hopefully NBC can hear the feedback that people have and change things up for the following season. There's one thing I've learned from this production company is they do listen to feedback, and they are willing to change certain aspects of the show based on feedback.
And here's another complaint of the show that I'm sure you two seem very astute. You picked up on penalty for actually not doing the obstacle, right?
Oh my God! Don't get me started on this one.
So week 1, we see people doing that giant log into the water, and one guy, Alex's team, figured out, let's just jump in the water. It's a lot quicker, and nobody's stopping us, right? And so then week 2, they announced it as a penalty. They go, okay, if you don't make it, you have to wait in the water. It still seems like the quicker way to do it.
For me, I always say I would like more prospects of the show where there's more penalties and chances for the the placement to switch things up. For instance, you brought up the log swing, right, where they jump into the water, and I brought this up on the show, like, why doesn't everybody just jump in the water, right? I would like it so if you fall off and you don't get on the pad, you have to go swim back to the placement, and everybody has to do it. That's a really good shot where even when you're the last person, it brings drama and intrigue. I think the reason they don't have that is because they want to keep the team placement close to each other, but I don't know. They need something to ramp up the difficulty, because right now we don't have enough diversity. Like, there's no obstacles. Like, there's no changing up every episode in terms of the obstacles or anything. So it's kind of like what we had the issue with Team Ninja Warrior this year, where after the first episode, man, there's not really much new to see.
Did you like that show though?
Team Ninja Warrior?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked it. I definitely think there was potential. I think for both this show and that show, I feel like there's a lot of good ideas, but there's also some flaws.
You know what though about Team Ninja Warrior though too is that, like, again, it's like the story is like, we already learned these stories on regular Ninja Warrior, and now here's these stories again of these people, because it's all the same people.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Team Ninja did a really good balance of that, right? They actually condensed the packages down a lot, and it was really a pure run, as close as we've ever had, of just race after race after race without extra fluff and very few fast forwards. I think there was a lot of
what you call fast forward, you mean yourself doing it or them telling you this is what happened?
This is what we like previously on kind of thing, where it's like, hey, by the way, while we were on commercial, this happened.
Right.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is on this particular episode, or this week's episode, I felt like the more compelling story that they could have went more into was the whole competition. I guess, just the friendly competition between Hunter and, I forget the guy's name, Mugliana or something like that. What's his name, Matt?
Dave Magida.
Magida, yeah. I think that would be a much better story, because I don't know how the rest of the community feels, but Magida, I've never really, I don't know. Ever since I always saw him hit that guy at the finish line, which I saw like a while back. I think it's more. This is gonna sound really bad, but you know how there are some people that have resting B face. I feel like Magida has like the D-bag face, where. He just has that type of face, so I don't know. I think they did play up. They're like, okay, here's an opportunity. We've got these two guys in the finals. Let's talk about their quote-unquote rivalry, because they do kind of have one in real Spartan. But again... Yeah, but that works, right?
It does, except that they fed them those lines. It's like, you could tell that they were fed the lines rather than just asking them a question. I mean, it's like, God bless that one woman on the Muddy Minglers, where, like, she said if there was, like, a counter, like 12 different versions of the same thing of, we may be old, but we're not slow, and can't wait to see how those young whippersnappers deal with us. Like, they just fed her every line in her kitchen to say to the camera. And it just makes for bad television.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. So let's talk about that for a second, because in that race, we had one step ahead, with Amy Winters and the artificial leg. We had Miami Spice with no Spartan experience. They've got a boxer and soccer player and other people on there. And then the Muddy Minglers, and they keep talking about them being the underdog. And I thought, no, they're not. How are they the underdog? Like, these guys are going to destroy the other two, and they did end up winning. Like, I don't understand how they were the underdog.
Right. They were the most Spartan experience, led by the current male champion of Spartan, right? The current leading.
Yeah,
exactly.
Again, it's like, well, we got to make up a storyline for this. Let's see how it goes.
I think the big issue is, right, for most people, especially me, because, Spartan racing and Tough Mudder, that's been like part of my life for about 4 or 5 years now. And I'm sure for you,
how have we not spoken before?
I don't know. It's crazy, right? I'm always running these things, but, I only do the SoCal ones. I don't know. Have you ever run the SoCal one?
I did Temecula in 2014, January, so 2 years ago.
Oh, man, I was there. I don't know. If you come out again, man, we're going to have to meet up, get some beer afterwards.
Do you hang out with, like, the West Coast Spartans or the Weeple Army or any of those people?
Nah, man, I just run myself.
Oh,
Sorry. I'm not part of a team or anything.
You should come. You should
maybe
join
I
up.
should.
Yeah, it's how we meet a lot of these people is through these groups and stuff.
Yeah, true. Well, I meet up. Last one I met up with some of the MRock people. But yeah, we're going off topic. The main part is, Matt. Where was I going with this? I was going somewhere. Well, I guess changing the subject, I guess a little bit. From the perspective of people that are passionate about the sport and everything, what do you think would be the best change for the show that would make most people happy from the whole Spartan community?
Yeah, I think hosts would be a big part, right? At least one person in there, and then actually letting them talk about obstacles or how they compare or what it's like to run a race. I mean, just anything that feels genuine. I mean, I think that's the deal. I mean, the reason, like, again, I'd have to go back and watch because I wasn't a fan of A&W early on, but Matt and Akbar clearly are invested in how well these people do, right? So
they're a huge investment from the hosts of the first seasons. Trust me. So the first seasons of A&W are awful.
So, but I'm saying, like, and that become like their excitement is our excitement, right? They genuinely care about what's going to happen. Even if you do want to make fun of all the stuff Akbar says, or that he says, are you kidding me too many times an episode? But at least in general, they're like excited about the show, and that's at least possible because it is live action. Whereas clearly Dahani and the other guy are not reading, like, they're doing it afterwards. They're clearly, and you can tell by what they say. So any amount of legitimate passion would be helpful, and certainly if it was somebody from the community or from the sport on there.
So let's talk about practical points here, because you just mentioned something that actually just rang true to me. They can't, like with American Ninja Warrior, they're at the end of the course. They can see everything that's happening, from beginning to end. Whereas these hosts are completely in the dark. They might have a little monitor or something to see it, but they can't see what's going on through most of the course. Is that part of the problem, do you think?
No, because they can. Because the Battle Frog show, have you seen that one? No. All right, so the Battle Frog College Championship, season 1 was last summer. This year they're bringing it back. It's going to be on in a couple weeks. It's a short course. It's a 400-meter course, broken up with a ton of obstacles. And they've actually got a college and pro division, quote unquote. So there'll be college kids and then people that you recognize from Spartan races, maybe some people from this show. But they sit there with a monitor, and because obviously they couldn't run next to them the whole time, but that's what cameras are for. And clearly with this course, they've got gators, they've got whatever. There's still a good percentage of it they could watch live and then go back, obviously, and do some ADR on some of it.
Yeah, I don't know. So I think we've been really even more harsh than usual on this particular episode. But I have to say, of the 3, this one actually was my favorite by a long shot. I actually enjoyed it.
I would concur.
Oh, this is going to be fun.
I would concur with that statement.
Oh, this is going to be really fun because I hated this episode, guys. And I'm
Really?
usually the optimistic one. Usually I'm trying to find like points for this. I don't know, guys. For me, last week's really... got me angry too. But that's if you remember, Rich. But for this episode, just the entire first half of this episode, I couldn't care less because they kept harping on that one damn storyline. And then once that whole thing was over with, I mean, I was invested emotionally in one team, and the other two teams in the final I didn't know about, I didn't care about. And for me, I don't know if it's something for me where I already know how the editing of the show works. I already know I already knew who won, so this whole episode kind of was spoiled for me.
Now, see, the first part of the episode, like you said, it was heavy-handed, but it was the only time I've ever actually gotten emotionally involved in one of these shows. So they get to the slip wall. I'm in it, but I'm not really into it. But they stick Amy at the bottom of the wall as the base, and I actually got upset, and I'm like freaking out at the TV. And it's the first time I've actually got passionate about this show. As like, what are you doing? Like, you can't do that. Why are you guys crazy?
Mm-hmm. I had two minds of that. I'm curious, Matt, what you think of this, because I've never really been in this situation. But I wonder if they put her on as the base because it might have been more difficult for her to climb up somebody.
Yeah, I'd have to ask her. I couldn't figure out why you would put a woman on the bottom, which, by the way, brings you another point. Because if you have a team captain that's a man, you've now got more men than women, right? And there's an advantage to that.
That's a good point.
But, yeah. I feel like that's something that's going to be a problem inherently no matter what, right, for the show. But, yeah, for me, I think that was an intriguing predicament that they had. And I appreciate that they showed the struggle and everything, but literally it was I forget her name. I'm sorry. What's her name, Matt? I know you know her name.
Who are we talking about?
Amy Winters.
Oh, the late Amy Winters. Yeah. For me, for half of the show, it was the Amy Winters show, and it was just too much.
It's so funny that because I didn't experience it that way. Like, I thought it was like the Hunter and Megiddo show. Like, that's what I thought I watched.
Yeah, Hunter got his time to shine as well. Definitely later on in the episode. But that's the thing. Hunter's story was compelling.
I think last week was the Farmstrong show.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Every week they've got one that kind of stands out.
But that's the problem. You know who's going to win based on that.
But they didn't win the Farmstrong.
Yeah, and neither did One Step Ahead. So, I mean, that's...
No. Sorry. I just realized... Last week, it was a Farmstrong show, but it was also, what's the team that won? Bounce
Squad.
Who was that team with Tia?
Bounce Squad.
Bounce Squad, yeah. I felt it was equally Bounce Squad's episode, especially with Tia's storyline. And we can get into that to later, but man, Matt, I feel like luckily they didn't really do it this episode, but the last two episodes, they really heavy-handedly spoiled the ending of the show for me.
Because
with
so you're
a package at the end.
So you're saying like week one they showed so much Isaiah that you knew Isaiah was going to win? Is that what you mean?
No, towards the end of the first two episodes, right in the middle of the race, they would have a video package of a person on a particular team, which of course would win the episode. And they just strummed up, or I guess hammed up that team more than the other two teams. And it became blatantly obvious that team was going to win. And I'm glad, if there's one thing that I can say, I'm really glad they didn't really do it this episode.
Can we talk about last week's for a minute? I mean, I know that we're supposed to talk about this one, but can we talk about last week's?
Sure. Have at it, my man.
Yeah.
So what did you think of like the Grey Guard team? Like, what were your thoughts on the Grey Guard?
You go ahead, Rich.
I'm trying to remember. It wasn't overly strong one way or another. Really, they seem fine. Seem good.
Did anything seem askew to you? I happen to know some behind the scenes stuff. That's why I was asking.
Are you talking about the 39-year-old on the team or something? Because, like, honestly, they seem pretty chill. I mean, I didn't like that. The problem with the show is they don't get really enough time for me to become emotionally invested or like see them too much. The only thing I really remember from that team necessarily is that one soundbite where the 39-year-old's like, "Oh, I'm not so happy about the median age being high," you know?
That's all you remembered about that and that Bounce Squad won.
No, I remember the hamming up of Tia's mom.
Right.
The most.
Right. But nothing about the actual competition.
Not really.
Not much. I'm actually looking at my notes, and I still don't remember much about it, and we just covered it.
All right. Well, offline we can talk about a couple things, but I'm curious.
But this is the problem with the show, man, is that there aren't these moments that are incredibly memorable. There's no Kevin Bull doing a backflip or a front flip from his legs off the Cannonball Alley or anything, you know?
Right.
There's not these crazy emotional investments that you have for the show. And there's opportunities for it to happen, but they're kind of just almost sabotaging themselves.
Right, because their goal is to produce a reality show, not a competition show.
Yeah, but that I don't know if that's the right way to go, right?
They're kind of marketing to me and not you guys. Like, that really what it boils down to. I'm like a typical fan, and you guys are Spartan racers. So
I agree with that, Rich. But the problem is that from a perspective of you, right, that hasn't done any of these obstacles, is this show really as compelling, or would you prefer it more to be like a competition? What would be more compelling for you?
I keep going back to the online one that we watched back in the fall.
Which was more of a competition. Yeah.
It was a competition between the elites, and I really enjoyed that a lot more than I've enjoyed this series so far.
What did you watch in the fall?
There
was a series of Spartan videos.
Matt, it was the show that used to be on NBC. They would do a Super Spartan, and it was the finals competitions between the top with all the top Spartans in the world.
Yeah, so that's NBC Sports network is that one.
Yeah. That's the one that we covered. And I think what Rich is saying is that a show more competition based like that's more athletic based, and you see the strain and just all the intensity and just the true aspects of actual competition of Ninja Warrior. Why am I saying Ninja Warrior? Spartan racing. I think that's what is more enthralling.
See, so those are about to start up again. By the way, if you guys want to watch those, the NBC Sports Shows are about to pick back up. So there's 5 of them, and then the 6th one is the championship in Tahoe, and they show that one on regular NBC. But my complaint with that in the past was it was too overly dramatic from this documentary style instead of live action. But it turns out it's way better than what they've done with this show, which is live action.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
But but before I used to say like, oh, it's a little too like dramatic, like everything's a slow motion shot. But in reality now that's completely much better than this thing.
If that's your options, you choose that one. Is that
no, absolutely, and it's definitely more enjoyable. And I really would like. I need to talk to more regular people because I only talk to people who do this stuff every day.
Yeah, you got your regular Joe right here, and even though I can't empathize, I don't know what it's like to run those things. I could see the exhaustion, and that's what to me, as a layman, was compelling about Spartan is that these were unbelievably long endurance trials, and that's not what we're getting with this show.
Yeah, it's the fatigue. I mean, the thing that I always remember about running Spartans is the damn Matt. If you remember, I don't know the name of it. When you fill up a bucket of rocks and you have to carry the damn thing up a hill,
right.
And it is just the worst thing on your forearms, right? Like that is Spartan racing to me,
right?
And you don't see any of that on this show.
Right.
I like seeing you don't have to do a crazy lengths or so much weight, but doing stuff like that where you get the endurance fatigue and you actually see the strain on people's faces and you actually see that they went through something incredibly grueling. And I'm not saying what they do on the show isn't grueling, but it's a different type of grueling. They're just doing obstacle after obstacle after obstacle, mostly upper body base. If you actually see things that just strain their entire body and they give everything they have, that's what makes it more memorable.
I agree.
Okay, so yeah, in the first heat, I actually enjoyed this episode as much as we've kind of gotten down on it. I thought it was, I don't know if it was the rewarding aspect of I knew those Miami Spice people weren't going to be able to keep up and everything.
I as soon as I saw them, I knew there was no chance.
So watching them missing the spears and then failing to do the totem climb and stuff there was something just so rewarding about that.
It's so funny.
And then I thought, I was really worried going into the second half that, we, like you said, we only seen one of these three teams up to now. But I thought they switched gears really well to make it about the rivalry between Hunter and David Magida. So that was okay in the end. I thought it was actually, I was compelled because they vilified David enough that I was like, oh, you can't let him win. Hunter, you have to win.
I want more Magida and Hunter because, like, Hunter is the pure, in wrestling layman terms, like, the pure babyface, and Magida is such a heel. Like, it's just so perfect.
It is perfect. Yeah, I thought they could have their own series, just the two of them. So I actually have a question. Maybe you'll know the answer to this. One thing that really stood out to me here, there was a point in the final heat when it was Muddy Minglers versus Team Warrior and Buckeye Bandits.
Buckeye Bandits?
Yeah, that was the green team that you heard almost nothing about. Just that, the captain doesn't leave anyone behind is what they drilled into.
They might as well have not been there.
Right. So that guy's name his last name is Jones, and him and his son, they're called the Unbreakable Joneses, and they'll do a Spartan race, like they'll do like 7 laps in a day, and so they're actually really good guys.
Yeah.
And they're from Texas, by the way.
Yeah, I've heard of those guys.
Right, but they're
pretty crazy with that stuff.
Right, but they have nothing to do with Buckeye.
Oh,
they're not from Buckeye. They're not from Ohio. They're from Texas.
Okay,
but they made him the captain of the Buckeye Bandits.
Yeah, I don't know. They just kind of lumped people together. I don't know how they chose the captains.
So what was your question?
Oh, sorry. My question was, so there's a guy, his name was Ken Martin. He hits the target on the spear throw, and then he goes back and grabs the rope to help them pull it. Like, I don't know, did you notice this time, Bijan, how they're like pulling the...
I finally noticed.
Yeah, so they're like, pulling the target closer.
I didn't notice the first 2 episodes that they're pulling the damn spear throw thing up.
But when he grabs the rope, he immediately throws his hands up like he wasn't supposed to. There seemed to be rules there that we weren't even told of. I don't know what was like. It seemed like if you hit the target, because I noticed Hunter was standing off to the side too. It's like almost like once you hit the target, you're not allowed to hold the rope.
Yeah, I thought he was just teaching them how to throw it. Like, okay, Hunter's standing there because they only need 3 of them to pull it a certain distance. They don't need all of them, and he's going to teach them how to throw it. That was what I thought.
Yeah, I think they actually can't touch it because if you watch the second guy that hits the target, he goes to grab the rope and immediately throws his hands up like he almost broke one of the rules.
Yeah, maybe early on they thought that was a rule worth talking about.
Yeah, I don't know. They skip over a lot of things, I find. Like, we don't understand, like you said, about the log jump and things where in the first episode we have no idea that they have to stay in the water, for example. They bring that up in the second episode.
Oops, we forgot to mention that in episode 1. Sorry.
Yeah, it's a little weird. And what was the other one? There was a couple this episode where it's like, oh, they're finally giving us... Oh, in the second heat, they add 2 new obstacles. We didn't even know that from the first 2 episodes.
Yeah, that was weird.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, the Herc Hoist and Timber Drop don't apply in the first heat, apparently.
Right.
And I will say this, though, as somebody that does this stuff, the obstacles look really fun. I will commend the show for actually having some pretty cool-looking obstacles. Man, do I wish they would change it up, but I got to commend like the Herc Hoist. And, the Herc Hoist is a regular thing. What was it? Timber Drop? Is that the one?
Yeah.
The giant log?
Right.
Like, I like seeing visually that thing looks cool.
Right.
One of the other things they did in the final thing, they provided the background for somebody in like a smaller like window type deal, and I thought that was way better because you can still see the race, but you're getting a little background. I think they should do more of that if they're going to do some background information without distracting from what's going on.
Right. They also do like you're in the middle of watching and like some giant swirly promo comes on for another show, and that's like so distracting.
It's all ridiculous when it like for me the worst it was from the first 2 episodes. You're invested in it halfway through, all of a sudden a video montage vignette comes for somebody's life, and you just why are you showing me this?
But yeah, so in the end, Hunter ends up sprinting up the wall and grabbing the other guy's foot, and it was actually a really good ending to the show. I really enjoyed the ending. It was kind of down to the wire. They're all
that was
hitting
cool,
the wall. I actually enjoyed the show as much as we've given it heck this episode. I actually did enjoy this episode.
And I did too. I did definitely like this one the best. and either it's a combination of the episode itself and getting used to the crappy style. We'll see what this week brings.
So we're going to wrap it up for this week. Matt, where can everyone hear more from you about Spartan and your podcast and everything you got going on?
They can find everything we do over at obstacleracingmedia.com. The podcast is called the Obstacle Racing Media Podcast, but everything can be found through our website, links to all of our social channels and YouTube and all that fun stuff. So Obstacle Racing Media.
That's great. So thank you very much for joining us, Matt. It was really fun talking Spartan with you. We actually went way longer than we intended because it was so much fun.
Yeah. But, yo, Matt, like, it was so awesome talking to you, man. It's always nice hearing the perspective of somebody that lives, and breathes obstacle course racing like me. And, hey, if you're doing the SoCal Spartan or Tough Mudder anytime soon, hit me up.
No, I will for sure. I really appreciate you guys having me.
All right, so that's it for this week. Thank you all for joining us. We'll be back with our coverage of the Philadelphia qualifier, which I'm really excited to share with you all because that's where I was at. If you'd like to reach out to us, you can find us at ninjapodcast.com. You can email us at rich@ninjapodcast.com. We are on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Everything's Ninja Podcast. Bijan, do you want to throw out your social media?
Hit me up at Twitter and Instagram at Bijan151, BIJAN151.
All right, so thank you all for joining us, and I hope you have a great week.
Peace, y'all.